Well, a great artist once said that good art is not what it looks like, but what it does to you. And I've lived this. I met one of my best friends at an art exhibit for Nandy Delight. Perfect name for an artist. And Nandy's boyfriend worked with our husbands, and so we all sort of gathered in support of Nandy at this gallery, and we had our polite introductions. We didn't really know each other, and went our separate ways. And I went off and I found this art piece that really struck me. I mean, it was this big maze made out of steel, the size of a rectangular kitchen table, with like these 6-inch walls and pop art stenciled on the walls of the maze, like Andy Warhol's Marilyn Monroe and American Gothic and Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band album cover. But what really struck me about this piece was that there were also these giant wax penises distributed through this maze. And I thought, you know, this is something I need to share with another woman. So I went off and I went up to this woman I just met. I said, I need to share something with you. So she came over and she looked at it. And she too was equally amazed, and it sparked great conversation, because I was like, all right, what is the meaning of penises lost in a maze of pop art? And she says, you know, I don't think they're lost. I think that this is really about the difficulty of navigating the art world, because it's populated with a bunch of pricks. And I was like, I like that. Well, Nandy moved away, but she came back to Albuquerque 5 years later. And since Michelle and I had bonded over making fun of her art, we felt compelled to go to her next show. So we get there like an hour before the show is going to close, and we rush in, and there's Nandy, and you know, she's lovely and tall and slender and these gorgeous silver earrings and dressed all in black like any good artist would be. And she sees us and she jumps up, she goes, "And Michelle, I'm so happy you came." And we have air kisses, and then she escorts us into her room. And we walk in there, and there's nothing in there. I mean, there's no painting, there's no sculpture, there are no wax penises, okay? It's just piles and piles of paper. Paper stacked on the floor, paper on desks, paper on chairs, paper on tables, and thousands of pencils, number 3 pencils. And she says, "So what do you think?" And I'm like, wow, well, and I'm thinking, what can I say that's truthful but not unkind? And so I'm like, well, you know, there's a lot of paper in this room and a lot of pencils. And she said, yes, 700 pounds of paper. And number 3 pencils, I got these on all my temp jobs. And she said, it's called interaction pencils. And so I just want you guys to move around the room and let me know what you think. I'm gonna be in and out. We're like, okay. So she goes, and I look at Michelle and I say, I don't know what the hell this is. She says, I know. I mean, all I see is the slaughter of innocent timber. I'm like, well, you know, it is so bad, it cannot be ignored. So I move around and I notice that people have scribbled with the pencils on some of the paper. I thought, okay. So I write out, roses are red, violets are blue. If you can call this art, I think we're all screwed. And I fold it up and I make a little airplane. I'm like, Michelle, and she turns around, I send that airplane at her. And she's like, oh, so that's the way it's gonna be. So then she grabs paper and pencils and she starts writing bad poetry, and I start writing more bad poetry. We make paper, airplanes, and we send them here, we send them there. We're having a ball, we're having this great time. And then Nandy steps back in the room. Well, what do you all think? Well, you know, Nandy, I'm still taking it all in here. I think I need a little more time. And she's like, all right, well, I'll be back. And so I turn around and I notice that there are all these pencils lined up on the windowsill in this display area. And so I go up and I start punching them down, and the pencil starts flipping. I punch another one, and Michelle's like, oh, that's cool. She gets to the other end. So now we have these flying pencils going through the air, and they're sharp. You know, they have these sharp edges, and one comes towards me, and I dodge out of the way, and I knock into one of the tables, and the paper goes and off and onto the floor. So Michelle hip bumps the desk next to her. More paper slides down. And so we both start hitting the tables and hitting the desk and hitting the chairs and the papers going this way and that way. And I'm like, oh my God, Michelle. She goes, oh, 700 pounds of paper. She'll never know the difference. So Nanny comes back in. And we've just been having a great time. Because really, we have regressed to being children, like about 5 years old. And Nandy comes back in and she says, oh, it's time to close up. And so, we pull it together again and we chit-chat with her. And she pulls out her keys and she goes over to this white box that is mounted on the wall that I had not noticed before. And it has this round hole. And she puts the key in and she lowers the door and there's a video camera. Now, I see it, but I can't believe it. And I say, what's that? And she says, oh, I like to videotape how the public interacts with my aunt, and I watch it later. And I'm like, and my brain just sort of like freezes, and I think, what did I say? What were the worst things that I said? Where was I when I said them? How strong is that microphone? And I think, okay, it's gonna be all right, because you know what? I said my meanest, nastiest remarks at that end of the room. And there's no way that she's gonna be able to get that on that microphone that far away. So she's gonna see me acting like a child, but she's not gonna hear how mean I am. And then she crosses the room, and there's another white box on the wall on the other side of the room with a little hole in it. And she brings the lid down, and it's another camera. And I think, oh, this is it, it's over. My only course of action, my only hope for escape from this is to leave right now before she watches those things. So we grab Michelle, I'm like, oh, we gotta go. Great show, good luck, see ya, bye. So we run out of there, and we laugh and scream at ourselves all the way home. Now, for years, I've carried this shame about my behavior that night, and I didn't keep in touch with Mandy because, of course, I assumed she wouldn't want anything to do with me. But I was curious about her career, so I Googled her, and I came across the press release for that show. And it said that she designed the show to beg public participation and childlike behavior. And I sat there and I thought, wow, I didn't embarrass myself. I fulfilled her greatest artistic aspirations. And if you judge art not on what it looks like, but what it does to you, she gave me a great gift of being a child, and she is one hell of an artist.